Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed the 5 o'clock as this will be the second drop today. As y'all know, we're doing this because we're helping Hunter and this is going to lead us in other things. So, here is your second encounter for the day. I have allergies, so please excuse me. Hello everyone, here's a little backstory before we get into my experience. I wish to remain anonymous, but I am a 20-year-old college student who is in the ROTC. My program has all contracted cadets shuttled out of a local military base every semester for an FTX, field training exercise. I wish to leave the specific base anonymous as well. In March of 2023, two of my friends went on this trip. The only reason I didn't go is because I wasn't contacted yet. Typically, this trip is 4 days and is based around 4 hours away. When my friends returned, they told us what happened during this trip. During the Nightland navigational practice, cadets get sent out with a compass and a map to find points given to them. My two friends experienced something spine-chilling. They heard something rustling in the surrounding woods. They stepped into the pitch-black darkness. As they moved along the thin path, this unknown thing followed them. They shined their headlamps toward the general direction of the sounds, but they never saw anything. After 10 minutes, the sound kept following them. They decided enough was enough, and they returned back to the starting point. When they returned, they told people about their experience, but no one really believed them. The story they told sounded believable, but I always thought that it wouldn't happen to myself, or anyone I knew for that matter, until November of 2023. It was time for the fall semester FTX. I was now contracted at this point, so I was required to go. After loading onto the bus, we made our way to the military base. My friends and I were having the best time, and the whole experience was great. Our commissioning class was really close, almost like my second family. When we got there, we unloaded our equipment and entered into the barracks. These barracks were not the newest or the nicest or the best, but I was happy just to be sleeping on a mattress, not in the dirt. We all prepared for the next 48 hours that we knew were ahead of us, which consisted of being shuttled out to a land navigational course, sleeping in a patrol base that night, and then having the full day of lanes the following day. My friends and I stayed up in the barracks, all squished together in a bunk, laughing and telling stories. We stayed up until about 1 a.m., which we would regret the next day. The wake-up time was 5 a.m., which wasn't bad compared to a 4 a.m. wake-up time we had the next day. We woke up the next morning and got shuttled out of the land navigational site. We took a quick test, then since I'm in second year, I got paired up to begin our full day of land navigational. I paired up with one of my few friends, and then we knocked out our points and returned to the starting point for chow. No, we didn't cheat, because our instructors took our phones to ensure we didn't cheat to enhance our skills. I wasn't upset about this since I needed to practice my land navigational skills. After everyone returned, we ate our MREs, and we got sent out for our second land navigational iteration. Yet again, she and I did really well, and we found 3 out of the 4 of our points. Yet again, we got back and waited for everyone to return, and our instructor surprised us with a hot chow from the DFAC. As the light seeped from the sky, you could hear the packs of coyotes in the distant howl. Coyotes always freaked me out. It wasn't their size, but it's the sounds that they make, and they build off of each other. Our instructors gave us our new coordinates to plot on our maps, and then it was pitch black time, and we switched partners. For the sake of the story, let's call her EM. I was excited to learn some knowledge she had to improve my skills. We were given our usual safety brief consisting of do not interact with wildlife and only turn your red lamp on when you're checking your map. So she and I stepped off. We were excited since most of our points were along this more significant path, and we didn't have to go too deep into the woods. As we started the journey to our first point, we talked as our eyes adjusted to the dimly lit path. The trees blocked most of the light and the moonlight that we had. We weren't on the path long before we started hearing rustling in the woods on our left. I took E.M. wide-eyed and whispered, "Did you hear that?" She shook her head, but we both agreed it was just some deer off in the distance. We started talking louder to try to scare them off, and we kept walking. The rustling stopped, so we just carried on. Much louder and aggressive rustling started to the right of us, not even a minute later. It sounded like it was about 15 feet away. My heart dropped. E.M. looked at me with a worried expression on her face. There wasn't a need to verbally confirm the noise because we both heard it, and by the looks on our faces, we both knew that each person had heard the same thing. We didn't want to be overdramatic, so we kept walking slowly. We began to talk louder to ensure that if it were deer, it would run off when it heard us. Our loud talking didn't work. The rustling turned into loud, stalking footsteps. It sounded like leaves crunching with loud thuds. It grew closer and closer to the path that we were on. When it first started following us, it sounded like it was 15 feet away, and now it was between 10 and 5 feet. It followed us for about probably 10 more yards. We briefly broke the rules and shone our headlamp into the brush. We saw nothing, no outline of a figure, no glowing eyes, nothing. All that we could hear was the loud thuds. This creeped us out because there would have been glowing eyes if it were an animal. We started walking back to back, keeping our headlamps on to cover our front and our back. Again, it kept following us along the pathway. As our situation started to be more serious, we needed to figure out if whatever this was it truly stalking us. I stayed in one place, shining my light into the brush, while E.M. sent ahead and walked slowly. I heard the thing follow her. I caught up to her and told her that I heard the loud thuds that followed as she went ahead. This final thinking freaked both of us out, and we had to make a decision. We decided that we needed to go back to the start point. We began to speed walk back to the starting point. I know that sounds like a bad idea, but our light was running out and our responses kicked in at that point. We ran as fast as we could down the path. We could hear the thing that was stalking us start to run in the brush beside us. We picked up the pace and saw two figures in the distance. Em and I were relieved when the two figures turned out to be two friends of ours. For the story's sake, I'll refer to them as Luke and Brian. Luke and Brian yelled, "You two better slow down. We thought you were a car with those headlamps on." We cut them off and filled them in on what had happened to us. They laughed and shrugged it off. It was probably just a coyote or a deer, nothing to be panicked about. Tell you what, we're going the way you two are going, so me and Brian will go back with you. If we hear it, we'll scare it off, and then we'll go back to our own ways and our own points. Em and I agreed. We probably were just paranoid, like Luke said. We walked and talked to them about other stuff. We alerted them when we got to the spot where we heard the rustling. Within seconds, the same leaves began crunching with the loud thuds. Both Luke and Brian froze. They looked at us and said, "Nope, let's get out of here." All four of us swiftly sped and walked back to the start point area. I said, "I told you me and E.M. weren't being dramatic. Next time one of y'all say something like that, we will believe you," said Brian. Personally, I just wanted to be done. But if we had gone back to the starting point with our instructions, they would not have been thrilled that we found none of our points, and there would be 2 more hours left of our time. So the four of us stuck together and went to another side of the map to find our points. We were paranoid and all kept our headlamps on low setting so no one would catch us. Unfortunately, Luke and Brian found their point before ours, so they went back to the starting point. We found another person to tag along with so we wouldn't be alone. We all chatted and tried to lighten the spirit. His point was before ours, too, so he peeled off in a different direction. EMI chugged along to find our final point. It was so deep in the woods that we had to file through the brush. We finally found it. Yet again, we were so relieved because where we were now, we was able to return back to the starting point. The whole time, it felt as if though something was watching us. I was consistently looking over my shoulder and watching to see something. I could feel the tension surrounding us. The forest that was around us was so silent that you could hear the pin drop. I knew that the forest being quiet was never a good sign. We were around halfway back when we started to hear the same crunching and thuds coming from our light. This time I froze in fear. I couldn't believe that it was happening again. I'm not super religious, but at this moment I started praying to whatever was listening. Ian turned around and we both put our backs together. We started walking a little faster in the deep dark woods. It is at the very rare for me to lose my cool, but I had a very uneasy feeling and it was starting to freak me out. Ian reassured me that I needed to keep level head. If it wasn't for her, I would have broken down. We finally got to the dirt path and we heard what we were hoping we wouldn't. Somebody yelled, "What are y'all doing with your lamps on?" This came from an upperclassman. We explained to her what happened, and she explained that the exact thing happened to her and some other people too. I told them how weird it was and that the noise was so loud and clear, but there were no glowing eyes or any figures in the distance. They said that some of the upperclassmen had experienced something large and hairy that was stalking them also. It went to the point that one of the females it tried to grab by the ankles from the tall grass into the pathway and pull her into the upper brush. The exercise was then ended, and the superiors ordered that every classmate be passed, and we were removed from that section of the woods and brought straight back to our barracks. Well, it sounds to me like they knew what was out there, and I started thinking that whenever I first started hearing the story that you had a female with you and it followed her and not you. Whatever this creature was doing out there, it was definitely interested in the females, and I believe they are most of the time. Even the elders around here will tell you that if you want an experience, if you take, and I don't know what this has to do with it, and some of you may have an opinion, and I hope you do, have as many women with you as you do men, and they say that you will have a huge encounter. Why the numbers have to be the same, I don't know. What are your all's thoughts on that? Until next time, guys, keep your head on a swivel, don't be something's dinner, and we'll see you on the next one.